The streets of Belgrade are pulsing. What began as scattered demonstrations has exploded into one of the largest waves of protests Serbia has seen in years.
It's considered to be possibly the biggest outpouring of public discontent here in decades.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets in Serbia, with red palm prints becoming the symbol of the protest, representing the blood-stained hands of those in power. 3 months after a fatal roof collapse at Novi Sad's train station, the student-led protest movement shows no sign of slowing.
Thousands of demonstrators turned out to protest against Serbia's populist president, Aleksandar Vučić, and what they call his corrupt administration. Long-simmering public outrage was triggered by the collapse of a newly renovated railway station roof in Novi Sad that killed 15 people, with many blaming the incident on rampant.
A raw, unapologetic cry from tens of thousands of citizens demanding accountability. But what is driving this groundswell of frustration? Why is Serbia, a country that has often flown under the global radar, suddenly erupting with unrest? In this video, we will not rehash the standard timeline of protest events or dissect the local political scandals that may have triggered this latest uprising. That narrative has already been covered extensively. Instead, we will take a step back and examine the deeper forces at play, the geopolitical root causes of Serbia's unrest. Because while most people may not consciously think in terms of geopolitics, their lives are nonetheless shaped by it. Serbia is a textbook example of a small state caught in the middle of great power rivalries, its sovereignty squeezed and its society strained by forces far beyond its borders. Despite its strategic location and complex history, Serbia has remained largely overlooked on the global stage. When it does attract attention, it is often through outdated narratives, with Western media portraying Serbia as proxies of Moscow. This framing ignores the far more complicated reality. Serbia is not simply resisting the West out of loyalty to Moscow. It is maneuvering through a delicate, high-stakes balancing act, trying to extract economic and political benefits from all major powers, while preserving its sovereignty in a world that's increasingly forcing nations to pick a side. History has shown that when a country is pulled in multiple directions, especially by more powerful foreign interests, the results are rarely benign. The consequences tend to include institutional instability, systematic corruption, and weakening of democratic norms. While many of Serbia's neighbors have integrated into the European Union or NATO and reaped certain benefits from it, Serbia has remained suspended in a kind of geopolitical limbo, and this paralysis is felt most acutely not in policy papers or foreign ministries, but in the daily lives of ordinary people. And herein lies the core of the crisis. While geopolitical maneuvering is the domain of diplomats and strategists, the burden it creates usually falls squarely on the public. Most Serbians are not concerned with concepts like multipolarity or strategic alignment. They care about concrete realities of their lives, like employment, wages, healthcare system, education, corruption, and the cost of living. They care about accountability and fairness. When these needs are ignored or undermined, people look to those who they can hold responsible, their own political leaders. Serbia is surrounded by neighbors that have joined NATO, the European Union, or both, while Serbia has joined neither. It was once the dominant republic in the now dismantled Yugoslavia, a non-aligned independent state that walked a neutral path during the Cold War. But in the 1990s, Yugoslavia suddenly fell apart. The conventional wisdom in the West often described the breakup of Yugoslavia as the inevitable collapse of an artificial state torn apart by ethnic divisions. What is often left out is the extent of foreign interference that exacerbated those divisions.
My fellow Americans, our mission is clear: to demonstrate the seriousness of NATO's purpose so that the Serbian leaders understand the imperative of reversing course.
Pažnja, vazdušna opasnost za Beograd. Pažnja, vazdušna opasnost za Beograd. Beograđani, pođite odmah u svoje skloništa zakona. Otvorite prozore, spustite rulete, isključite električnu energiju, zatvorite plivni slom, ponesite pripremljene stvari. Ako ste u vozilu, parkajte sa strane i pođite u najbliže sklonište. Znači, vazdušna opasnost za Beograd. Molimo da sledite instrukcije i uputstva koje ćemo davati iz gradskog centra Za obaveštavanje gotovo.
George Kennan, former State Department official and the architect of America's Cold War containment strategy, once observed that Belgrade's real offense in the eyes of the West was its refusal to join the trend of aligning with NATO and the EU. You see, as Eastern European countries scrambled to join Western institutions after the Cold War, Belgrade refused to bandwagon and maintained a path of stubborn independence. This refusal did not go unnoticed. Elements within other Yugoslav republics, including the province of Kosovo, saw closer integration with the West and received encouragement from Western governments and institutions. This fostered separatist movements that eventually led to war. The West swiftly recognized breakaway republics, further isolating Serbia and accelerating the dissolution of Yugoslavia. After the collapse of Yugoslavia, Serbia was left weakened, its economy was shattered, its international reputation damaged, and its political system fragile. But this wasn't enough. The tensions continued in 1999, when NATO unilaterally attacked Serbia during the Kosovo War. This ultimately led to the unilateral declaration of independence by the province of Kosovo, which meant a big chunk of Serbia's territory was being taken away. After all was said and done, and a new millennium began, faced with the devastating aftermath of the 1990s, it seemed Belgrade had no choice but to seek alignment with the West as well. But joining Western structures would come still with harsh prerequisites. Too many to list in this video, but chief among them was the recognition of Kosovo's independence, a condition that remains politically unfeasible within Serbia. It's difficult to overstate how important Kosovo is to Serbians. Kosovo is not merely a territorial dispute, it is a symbol of Serbian identity and history. To many Serbians, letting go of Kosovo is simply unacceptable. Yet, Kosovo isn't just important to Belgrade, it's very important to Washington as well. Following the war, the US established Camp Bondsteel in Kosovo, one of its largest military bases in all of Europe. From Washington's perspective, maintaining a pro-Western independent Kosovo that hosts key military infrastructure is paramount and non-negotiable. This sets up an irreconcilable dilemma for Serbia: recognize Kosovo and gain Western support, or hold the line and face perpetual pressure. And so began Serbia's modern geopolitical balancing act. After experiencing the Yugoslav wars, sanctions, demonization, NATO airstrikes, there was no rest for the weary as Serbia found itself in yet a new battleground, the fight for its sovereignty. Four major powers now shaped Serbia's geopolitical environment: the United States, the European Union, Russia, and China. The EU is Serbia's most important economic partner, providing trade, access to finance, and a roadmap for modernization. With this, the EU has considerable leverage over Serbia. Yet, Serbia maintains strong ties with Russia, which offers energy discounts and diplomatic backing, particularly in the United Nations regarding Kosovo. Meanwhile, China has emerged as a pragmatic partner, funding infrastructure projects and extending loans with no overt political conditions, also providing diplomatic support over Kosovo. The United States, who by far has the greatest military presence in Southeast Europe, remains an ever-present force, giving Washington the greatest leverage, as influence can be exercised not only through trade, loans, or diplomatic agreements, but also through the projection of military power, and no form of leverage is more decisive than security. This multi-vector of influence gives Serbia room to maneuver, actually more than many other nations, especially those in the EU and NATO, but it also imposes constant pressure. Serbian leaders have to consistently manage how to play these powers off each other, extracting concessions here, avoiding commitments there, and as you can imagine, this hedging strategy does offer considerable benefits, but also at a cost. It creates stagnation relative to Serbia's EU neighbors, as well as providing fertile ground for corruption. It weakens institutions and of course fosters democratic backsliding. For example, this can be witnessed in Serbia's acquiescence to the lithium deal that has sparked controversy, a deal being primarily pushed by the EU. With the EU having so much leverage over Serbia, it's difficult for Serbian leaders to simply say no, which then in turn angers the Serbian population, who see this deal as a potential environmental catastrophe. This disconnect between geopolitical strategy and everyday experience is driving the deep frustrations among the population. The current protests were sparked by a specific incident, a tragic infrastructure failure in Serbia's second largest city of Novi Sad. But the deeper cause is cumulative frustration. People are angry not just at a single event, but at a system that fails to meet their expectations, a system where Serbia is trapped in, not only its people, but its elites as well. And crucially, most Serbians do not see this as a geopolitical issue. They are not protesting against NATO or the EU. They are protesting against their own government because it is the only entity that they can hold accountable. The deeper geopolitical forces remain distant, abstract, and unchallengeable. It is the local politicians who face the brunt of public rage. Yet, even if a new government came to power, the structural bind would still remain. Serbia would still face the same impossible choices: completely yield to the long list of Western demands, which includes Kosovo's recognition, or maintain its core national interest. Even though Serbia has already made many concessions in recent years, like the lithium mining, negotiating with Kosovo, pulling back from Republika Srpska, and many more, but the actual recognition of Kosovo still remains the immovable obstacle. Until that is resolved, Serbia will remain in limbo, navigating a path that was forced upon them. Still, there may be a long-term advantage to this forced neutrality. Whether Serbia wanted to or not, like Yugoslavia before them, they are in a neutral position, independent and still in control of their own foreign policy. But for how long? The fact is, the global order is shifting. The unipolar world of American dominance is giving way to a more fragmented, multipolar landscape. The EU, beset by internal divisions and economic challenges, is no longer the inevitable destination it once seemed. China continues to rise. Russia, despite sanctions, remains a global player, and the pendulum is swinging further and further away from the West. With this in mind, Serbia has a real chance of emerging into a powerful entity in of its own. It won't be a simple client state or a pawn, but could emerge as a bridge between competing blocs. It could become the epicenter of Southeast Europe, a mini pole in of its own, in a multipolar world. But who knows when that day will come? As things stand now, Serbia is in a diplomatic war of attrition. The US and the EU are constantly and consistently eroding Serbia's position. Its independent foreign policy is being broken down slowly but surely, forcing Belgrade steadily to yield bit by bit to Western demands. However, gotta give credit where credit is due. With all things considered, it's quite amazing the country that has lasted this long without yielding to all of the West demands, including Kosovo. But this game cannot last forever. Bottom line is, Serbia cannot match the power of these giants, but it can leverage its geography, history, and experience. It has endured war, occupation, sanctions, bombings, and decades of pressure to this very day, and yet it persists. As Noam Chomsky once said, even small states have agency, provided they understand the game being played. The question is, will the average Serbian understand the game that's being played? The challenge for Serbia is, can it keep their population satisfied to some degree and continue navigating its complex foreign policy landscape with clarity and discipline? Can it endure the ongoing eroding of its geopolitical position, its society, and sustain the immense pressure by the West? If so, Serbia could emerge victorious in this diplomatic war of attrition and be a model of resilience. In a world increasingly defined by fragmentation and uncertainty, Serbia's balancing act, so often overlooked, may come to be seen by future generations as strategic wisdom. Hope you enjoyed my video. Please like, share, and subscribe. There is still so much to this topic that I wasn't able to cover in this one video. But if you want me to talk about anything more or expand on certain points, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Thanks again, guys, and ciao for now.